Hello, everyone. Welcome to How to Become a Colorado Certified Prevention Specialist. You will see the acronym CCPS throughout this manual and throughout our conversation today. We are the COPA certification team. My name is Precious Collins. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a Ute Mountain Ute tribal member from Southwest Colorado. And I have worked in both prevention and recovery for many years here in the state of Colorado. And I join you today as the certification manager with the Colorado Providers Association. And I'll pass it over to Katie to introduce herself.
Awesome. Thank you, Precious. My name is Katie Agenbrod. Pronouns are also she, hers, hers. I'm the certification specialist here for COPA, and I am happy to help if you have any questions after this presentation about your application as you move through that process. I love hearing from you guys, and I'm also passionate about prevention and getting you credentialed. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Precious, and we will get started on the manual.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. Well, we're going to begin here with the CCPS manual. This is going to be your step-by-step guide to becoming a key player in Colorado's prevention efforts around substance use and mental health challenges. As a part of the prevention efforts here in Colorado, you'll be addressing important issues like violence, substance use, and mental health. With the right training and the right education and strategies, you are going to be able to prevent and find strategies to prevent challenges that may start in the home, all the way from in the home to the community and into the state. The CCPS credential shows you that you have the skills and knowledge needed to make a real impact on multiple levels. You'll prove your competency through your experience, your education, your work supervision, as well as passing the ICRC prevention specialist exam. By becoming a credential peer or prevention specialist, you'll join a group of prevention professionals who are dedicated to keeping our community safe and healthy for generations to come. So with that, let's talk about what it takes to become a Colorado Certified Prevention Specialist. You will need to, through your credentialing process, we will be examining your experience as well as your skill sets. And those skill sets and those competencies are outlined by the credentialing organization we call International Certification Reciprocity Consortium. The Colorado Providers Association is credentialed through them to provide the Colorado Prevention Specialist certification. And so to get certified, you will need to demonstrate the abilities in 6 key areas, which we refer to as the core competencies: planning and evaluation, prevention, education and service delivery, communication, community organization, public policy and environmental change, professional growth and responsibility, just to name the 6 domain areas. There are areas, these areas cover everything from how to plan and deliver prevention programs to how to communicate and grow as a prevention specialist. Now let's go over the timeline for your credential. When you start your application, you'll have a soft 2-year time frame to complete your application. But don't worry, this is just a reminder. You'll actually have up to 5 years to gather the necessary training and experience. If you need more time, that's okay. But remember that the training and the experience hours that you upload for your application, by the time your application is ready for submission or review by the committee, those training hours and those experience hours must fall within 5 years of that date. Once you have completed all the steps, the CCPS committee will review your application at their monthly meeting. And if everything looks good, you'll get an email from Katie, and it'll have the pre-registration information for your ICRC exam. You will then have 1 year from that date of email to complete your exam. If you pass, your certification will be valid for 2 years. To keep in mind, to keep your certification active, make sure you complete your recertification at least 2 to 3 months before your expiration date. If you are late, there will be a $50 reinstatement fee. And you have up to 1 year after your expiration date. So if your credential lapse, you have 1 year after that expiration date to complete your recertification. If you go beyond that 1 year grace period, you will have to start the process all over again, which means resubmitting an initial application for the credential. Finally, let's talk about testing accommodations. We understand that everyone is different, may have some needs, and we are here to try to help with those accommodations. We want to make sure that the exam is fair to everyone. If you do have any special accommodations, we do request that you let the certification team know before your application is completed and goes to the committee for review. The ICRC exam is also available in Spanish, but is only offered in certain areas and locations. So if you do need the exam in Spanish, again, please let the certification team know before your application goes to the committee for review. With that, I'll pass it over to Katie for credentialing requirements.
Awesome. Thank you, Precious. So we're now going to go over an overview of the requirements for your initial certification. We'll go over more in depth about the training requirements in the Certemy application in later parts of this presentation. This is a broad overview of everything you'll need to get that initial certification. So you'll begin with gathering basic information about your residency and your name. You'll hear this repeated throughout this presentation, but under the section where you enter your name, please ensure that you're using the name that matches your government issued ID. We know this may not be your preferred name, but because we use this name to register you for the ICRC exam, we have to make sure it matches your ID so that you're not turned away when you arrive at the testing center. We'll also need to verify that you live or work in Colorado at least 51% of the time. And then you'll also, for the education section, provide proof of high school completion. This can take the form of complete high school transcripts, a high school diploma, incomplete or complete college transcripts, or a college diploma. I apologize. Moving down into prevention training, you will need a total of 120 clock hours in prevention training completed within the past 5 years. So that means all of your certificates of completion must have a date that is within the past 5 years. Broken down, those hours include 31 hours of substance abuse prevention skills training, or SAPS, 24 hours of alcohol, tobacco, and other drug-specific education, or ATOD, 6 hours of prevention ethics, and 59 hours of additional or other prevention training. We recommend when choosing those additional or other prevention trainings that you prioritize trainings that target any knowledge or experience gaps that you have within the IC and RC domains. So say you have less knowledge and experience in planning and evaluation, we recommend seeking out trainings in that area. I also want to note that SAPS and ethics are often restricted trainings with limited training providers. So it's recommended to get those done as soon as possible so as not to prolong the approval process. And then moving down here into experience, you will need to have a supervisor attest to 2,000 hours of prevention work experience obtained in a minimum of 2 years with work that covers the IC and RC domains for this credential. Please note that your experience hours cannot be from experience that was gained more than 5 years ago, and that from the time that your application is completed. Of these 2,000 hours, 120 must be supervised experience, and it must cover at least 10 hours per each of these IC and RC domains. Next, you'll see here the statement of prevention experience. This is a short statement that will summarize your philosophy regarding prevention and how your training and experience hours have shaped your understanding of prevention principles and practices. Please note for this section, you will not see this in Certemy at this current time, and it is not currently required. However, when Certemy is updated in early 2025, it will be required, and you'll see it on that application. Following that is the Code of Ethical Conduct. Each applicant must sign the Code of Ethical Conduct to demonstrate their understanding of best practices while working under this credential. It's incredibly important that you understand and take to heart what the Code of Ethical Conduct contains and understands that you'll be held accountable to these standards as a prevention professional working under the CCPS credential. Lastly, there are 2 different fees associated with your initial application. The first is the registration fee, and the second is the application fee. The registration fee is $50, and the application fee is $245. If your organization is paying for one or both of these fees, please have them fill out this form that is linked in the manual, or reach out to the certification team to get that link and communicate with them if you have any questions about that. And then lastly is the ICRC exam, which we'll cover more in depth later. So I'm going to hand it off to Precious for training requirements and limitations. Precious, you're on mute.
Gotcha. Thank you, Katie. So let's dive into training requirements and limitations for your credential. It is important, as you can see there, please read the entire section carefully. I'm going to touch on some major areas that are kind of some common issues that we see when people submit their application. First off, if you are entering a multi-day training in one of your sections for training, like take, for instance, you take SAPS and that's a multi-day training, we encourage you to make sure you use the final date, so the last day of training, as your training date. So let's talk about trainings that are not acceptable. Offline self-paced trainings are not acceptable. This includes paper-based trainings, independent studies, community meetings, pre-recorded videos and sessions. Anything that is not going to provide a proof of attendance or certificate at the end is not going to be acceptable and will be considered offline self-paced training. On the flip side, there are trainings that are acceptable, and those look like webinars, online self-paced trainings that do provide certification or proof of attendance at the end, live conferences, as well as live training sessions. So let's talk about training categories that fall outside of the SAPS, ATOD, and ethics. Those trainings may include, and what we usually see applicants upload are trainings related to specific treatment or therapies, harm reduction, as well as recovery. These can be used, but with limitations. You can apply up to a maximum of 4 hours towards ATOD section. So any of these trainings, depending on what it is, again, and this is a disclaimer, these trainings, if they are not on the approved training list, are reviewed by the committee on a case-by-case basis. So keep that in mind. The committee ultimately has the decision at the end to either reject or approve that training. So any of those trainings can be used for a maximum of 4 hours towards ATOD, or up to 8 hours applied to the additional prevention training section. And this is beyond the hours you may have already gotten for the treatment or that harm reduction or recovery training. If that training was 8 hours, 12 hours, 20, 30, 60 hours, we can only apply the maximum hours there, as I stated, to your application. Now, clinical courses, those also too have limitations. These can look like your CAS, CAT, or LAC certifications and licensures and trainings. Those are not permitted for this certification because they are clinically focused courses that do not apply to prevention specifically. Now, there are, granted, I'm not saying that you cannot take those courses to further your professional development. If that's the route and journey you choose, that is fine. But for this credential, those courses will not be applicable. It is nice to have a well-rounded understanding of what treatment and therapy and interventions and recovery and maintenance look like. It's a part of the continuum of care, but we also too have to recognize the core competencies of this credential, and clinical courses and training are not a part of that. Proof of attendance is required for all training hours that you claim on your application. So you are going to need to upload a certificate of attendance or completion. On that certificate, there are things that Katie will be looking for, and those include the name of the training center or organization that provided the training, your name, the number of hours that you completed in that training, and then the date of training. Now, remember, conferences and training agendas or brochures are not acceptable. They are not an acceptable form of proof of training completion. If you have any issues getting your certificate, please reach out to the COPA team, certification team here. We do have a self-attest training form that is not filled out by the applicant. It is filled out by the applicant supervisor or the facilitator or trainer of that training they attended. So keep that in mind. Now, college and university credits, they are acceptable depending on if they are prevention-related courses. We will accept up to 45 hours towards your credential of prevention-related courses. So keep that in mind. It has to be prevention-related. It is your responsibility to make sure that your course aligns with the ICRC domains for this credential. You can upload, if you choose to use college or university credits, you can upload an official or unofficial transcript as documentation. We also ask that you additionally upload the class syllabus, the course description, or other document that details the content that was covered in that course. The reason why is the committee wants to make sure that it aligns with the domains of this credential. Now, the credit conversion is for 1 semester credit is equal to 15 clock hours. So 3 semester credits are equal to 45 clock hours, which is your maximum. And if you are in a college or university that uses quarters, 1 quarter is equal to 10 clock hours. And on to conferences and symposiums and other large learning events. They are acceptable also with limitations. A certificate of attended is required, and a list of sessions that you attended is also required. And you can upload those documents under these additional training section that you would like to utilize those hours. We do recommend that you check out the approved training list. It'll have the links to approved training organizations and platforms, as well as some historically approved conferences that the committee has approved. Again, any training, any hours uploaded, whether that's online or offline or conferences, will be reviewed by the committee on a case-by-case basis if it is not on the pre-approved training list. Lastly, if you attend the same training, workshop, or conference more than once, that's fine. We understand, especially with conferences, the agenda and workshops change year to year. So we do ask that you upload a statement of prevention experience for that conference, workshop, or training. And in that statement, we're looking for you to describe to the committee the unique learning or content that you gain from that experience on each year that you went. For example, if you went to the Shared Risk and Protective Factors Conference in 2020 and 2021, we would want you to explain what new information or insights you gained each year. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Katie on how to apply.
I did the same thing. Thank you, Precious. Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of your Certemy application. So the first thing you're going to want to do is follow this link or go to coprovidersassociation.org to start your application. This is the homepage of the COPA website. You'll go to certifications and then prevention specialist certification and apply. You can also go to apply for certification and click the CCPS logo as well. That will direct you to Certemy, which will have you create an account or sign in with a pre-existing account. I'm already signed in. There's just a couple prompts where you'll create a username and a password or sign in with the ones you already have. So this is what your application will look like once you are in there. You might have to refresh or log in and log out if it's your first time opening up this application for it to show up. But it'll have all the steps that we have previously described laid out for you here. So to begin an application step, all you need to do is click on it and follow the prompts. So for the questionnaire step, I click on it, hit complete now, fill out all these drop downs, and then I'd hit continue, and that would complete the step. There are some notes I want to make on a few of the steps in here. So for the CCPS application, as I mentioned, in these spots, you will want to enter a name that matches your government issued ID. This is the step that I pull from when I pre-register you for your name. So if that does not match your government issued ID, I don't know, and I may register you under the wrong name. And then when you go to the exam, the registration letter, if it doesn't match your ID, they will turn you away from the exam at that time, and you'll have to pay a fee to reschedule your test. So make sure when you put that in there, those things match. And then moving down to experience steps, these ones look a little different because they need to be filled out by your supervisor. So you will click in here and invite a supervisor by hitting add new invitation, which I guess it already has open, but you'll be able to send them an email that they will receive. It'll have a link to a form that they'll click and be able to fill out those attestations. So you'll do that for prevention experience and then the supervised experience step. Please wait until you have all of your hours before you send those invitations to them, because you'll put in how many hours they can attest to. And in the past, I've had some applicants who put in a partial amount of hours, and then Certemy has to reset that step if it's the same supervisor trying to put in more hours after that. So just wait if it's all coming from one supervisor. However, if you have multiple supervisors, you can divide those hours up between them and send multiple invitations. We do also understand that some supervisors may be less tech savvy than others, or might prefer a paper application. If that's the case, please reach out to me and I can get you that paper application and walk you through the process of what that looks like. Then moving on to training, these are the buckets where you will put your trainings into when you go to upload them. So I have a couple of notes for trainings. Please ensure that you are uploading all of your trainings as individual uploads. Um, Sometimes I see people put all of their certificates of completion into the same upload. And unfortunately, that does not work because the committee approves every training on an individual basis. So after their review, I come into your Certemy application and approve or reject every training individually based on what the committee has said. So given that, if I do come into your application and there's like 30 certificates of completion in one, I will be reaching out to you to have you separate those out. And then as Precious described, the manual does allow for you to separate hours out between sections. So say an ATOD training and additional prevention training. However, you cannot put the full hours into both. This is something that I also see fairly commonly, where a training that has a certificate of completion with 6 hours on it is put in into ATOD for 6 hours and then also into additional training for 6 hours. That results that 6-hour training being a 12-hour training in your application. So what you can do is you can put, say, 4 hours into ATOD, 2 into additional training. And then lastly, I want to reiterate the training verification portion. I will go in to each of your uploads. It looks a little different on my end, but I'll go in and click on each of the certificates of completion attributed to a training and ensure that they're either a certificate of completion or attendance or that COPA self-attest form from a supervisor or an organizer. If it is not, then I won't be able to count those hours as complete and I'll reach out to you to get that fixed. And then moving down to fees, you will have those two fees, the registration fee at the top and the application fee at the bottom. All you need to do to pay those is click on them and then hit pay fee, where you'll be able to put in your credit card information. If you do have a third-party payer paying for you, you'll click on this, put a comment of which organization it is, and then make sure they have that form that is linked in the manual here to fill out, so that way we can process that and get it attributed to your application. And then lastly, I do want to reiterate the, let's see, where am I at in here? The accommodations and ID requirements. Basically the last step when you get down to the bottom here, right above certification committee approval, is the end of the application for you. And at that time, before you get to that point, or when you get to that point, please let me know if you will need accommodations for your exam. I need to know before the committee reviews your application, because I won't be communicating with you until after I've sent you the pre-registration for the exam. So they approve, I pre-register you, and then I send you that email. I need to know if you need accommodations beforehand so I can indicate that during that pre-registration process. Same with your ID. If you have put in a name that is different than the one that you that matches your government issued ID, please let me know prior to the pre-registration so I can get that fixed for you. And then the Spanish version of the exam, if you need that, also let me know before you get down to these steps as well. If you are watching this video and you've already started your application and you're like, oh, I need accommodations, I need to change my name, I'd like to take the Spanish version of the exam, feel free to pause this video now, reach out to me, let me know your requests, and I can get that figured out for you. Also, please note that some of the information in Certemy might be a little outdated or links might be broken at this time. If you run into any broken links, please check the COPA website under that prevention specialist certification areas. We do have many of the links there, or reach out to me and I can send you the documentation that you need. Certemy doesn't allow us to make individual changes, so we're doing a big update that will be coming out in early 2025. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Precious for a brief discussion of committee review.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. And if you gotten to this point, this is the final step of your application process. Woo-hoo! Yeah, it's a committee review. You took all our advice throughout this manual video, the step-by-step guide, and you have successfully put forth a successful application. The committee will review your application. And a part of this is making sure that you submit your application in a timely manner. And when I say submit, now keep in mind, there isn't necessarily a submit button on your application. As you can see there, as Katie pulled up, there are little white bubbles there by the symbols on each section. Once you have gotten green all across there, right, you can see in ethical trainings there, there's a green button. That means that Katie uploaded a document and met the 16 the hours they're required for ethics, right? And the same for all these other sections. Once you see that green going all the way across, that's going to indicate to you and to the system that your application is ready to be reviewed. So again, just a slight little comment in there before you get to that point. Make sure you reach out to Katie or to the certification team, any one of us, to make sure you request that accommodation or need help fixing your name on your application so it matches your government ID. It cannot stress that enough. So what happens after you submit your application? Well, it'll go to the committee. Well, first off, Katie will review it to make sure there isn't any issues. Uploads of certification, the documentation uploaded, supervision hours, there isn't any issues there. Once that quick glance over is done, it'll go to the CPFS committee for review. We do ask that you submit or at least have all your sections done prior to 10 days prior to the committee meeting, which is the second Tuesday of every month, right? After it is reviewed by the committee, you will get notified. I know in the manual it says within 10 days, but we have this down pretty well. We will notify you either the day of or the day after the committee meeting, whether or not your application has been approved. So with that, there are 3 possible outcomes for for the committee review. The approval means that the committee has reviewed your application, has approved it, which means you will get an email from Katie or from the certification team, and it'll have the pre-registration for your ICRC exam. Now, keep in mind, this email is going to be a forward, so FWD will be in the subject line. The reason for this is because SMT and ProMatrix, where we register you, pre-register you for your exam, when that comes from that platform, it usually goes to your junk mail, which is unfortunate. So that is why the certification team will email you, will forward that email to you directly so that you can get it. We suggest that you thoroughly read that email all the way from top to bottom. There's some really good information in there. The second outcome is requests for more information. And this means that the committee reviewed your application and they want more details. This can pertain to your training, It could pertain to your experience hours, or whatever it may be in your application. They're just looking for more information or clarification. And if in that case, Katie or the certification team will be reaching out to you to get that information from you and present it back to the committee for clarification, at which point the committee usually is satisfied with the response and clarification, will approve your application. If not, they might respond back with another question just for further clarification. That is very rare, but it does happen from time to time. The third option or the third decision could be non-approval. So just in that case, we actually haven't had any of these instances, but there could be some instances of this. For example, an applicant is uploading a lot of harm reduction and peer recovery training, their experiences in recovery and peer support. In that case, the committee might say, look, this credential does not sound to be, it might not be applicable to this applicant. Let's see if they are more suitable for the Colorado Peer and Family Specialist credential. And in that case, they wouldn't approve the prevention application for that person. But again, very rare, but it might happen, could. So I want to make sure you all are aware of that. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Katie to cover the ICRC exam.
Awesome. Thank you, Precious. So yes, as Precious described, after you've been approved by the committee, I will send you a pre-registration email. When you receive that email, your name will be at the top. And just to reiterate, this is the most important time for you to check and make sure that name matches your government issued ID, because this is the name you've been registered with the testing company and the name they'll be looking for when you show up at the testing center. It is only first and last name. Middle names are not included for identification, so don't worry too much about that or putting that in. But you'll use the instructions in that email to set up an account with SMT IQT, which is the testing company, and you'll be able to register for a time and testing location that works best for you. Again, as a reminder, if you get to this point, you're like, oh shoot, I forgot to ask for accommodations, or I want to take the Spanish version of the test and I forgot to tell them beforehand, you can reach out to me at this point and I can make those changes by reaching out to the testing company. If you get registered, I can't make those changes. The testing company has to go in, and it becomes a lot more complicated. So please do your best to catch those by pre-registration and not registration. The exam encompasses 6 domains pertinent to prevention work. Right here are IC and RC domains. In the pre-registration email that I send you, I will also include links for both free and paid IC and RC study materials for you to reference as you pay for your exam. They do offer a practice exam that is paid, but they do have some great free resources as well. It is your responsibility to arrive at the testing site on time with proper identification and the registration or candidate admissions letter that you'll get after registration. If you are marked as a no-show due to missing your exam, or you're turned away from the exam for any reason, such as improper identification, you will need to pay a $125 fee for us to be able to redo your pre-registration. Then we'll get to exam outcomes. So first is passed your exam. Congratulations, you're now a certified prevention specialist. Keep an eye on your email for your test results, and once you receive them, you will upload them into the last step of your Certemy application. The certification manager will process your results and send your official CCPS credential to you via email. You can also access your credential at any time in the digital wallet of your Certemy account, which, if we pop over here, is right up here. Click in here, general, and then when you make any payments, this is just an aside, there'll also be a receipts tab. So if you ever need your receipts for your payments, they will be in your digital wallet as well. If you failed your exam, no problem. You can retake the exam, and you will need to pay a $125 retake fee and wait 90 days before you can take your exam again. So yeah, that is the exam process. So what happens after your exam is over? You got your credential, amazing. You are now in the recertification stage. So Your CCPS credential is valid for 2 years, and your renewal date is determined by the expiration date found on your credential document. So please put that date on your calendar and also put 2 to 3 months prior, as Precious was saying. Like she said, there may be concerns that I reach out to you about that need fixing before you get to that review, committee review portion, or the committee may need additional information. There may be some time figuring that out, and they only meet once a month. So these can drag on a little bit longer than you might think if something does need to be changed. So submitting that application early ensures that you do not go past your expiration date into the grace period. The grace period begins right after your expiration date and lasts for 12 months. You're still able to recertify in that period, but with a $50 reinstatement fee. If you reach 12 months past your expiration date, you can no longer recertify, and you must reapply using the initial application, meeting all current requirements for the CCPS credential. Certemy will automatically generate a recertification application in this same spot under your credentials for you as soon as you receive your initial credential. And that means that you can go in at any time in the next 2 years and upload your training hours or complete those steps. However, I would recommend if you are a, overachiever, you get everything in really soon, to leave one step incomplete, because as soon as it shows up complete on my report, I assume that you are ready to review. And if that's like a year early, that means your recertification might happen earlier than you wanted it to. So just leave a step incomplete until you're all ready to go. And then lastly, not lastly, excuse me. The recertification process involves a few steps, which majority is obtaining 40 hours of continuing education, including 3 hours of prevention ethics. So 37 hours of just general continuing education related to those domains, 3 hours of prevention ethics for a total of 40, and then paying a $200 renewal fee. Please keep in mind that the purpose of continuing education is to ensure that you're keeping up to date on new information, best practices, getting new knowledge, sharpening your skills within those IC and RC domain topics related to this credential. Because of this, all of the training that you take for your recertification must fall within the 2-year period between your credential issue and expiration dates. So if I got my credential issued in June 2022, and then the expiration is June 2024, your training dates must fall within there. And then if you have not taken SAPST within 5 years, you will be required to take that for your recertification. And then we have the recertification statement of education, similar to the initial statement. It's just a short statement that allows you to explain how the training you completed contributed to your growth as a prevention specialist and strengthened your understanding of the IC and RC prevention domains. Great thing is that once you've taken the IC and RC exam, you do not need to take it again for recertification. Your final step for recertification is going to be committee review. So very similar to your initial application, once all the steps in your recertification application are complete, it'll show up on my report that I will review, and then if everything's good to go, put it on the agenda for the committee. They'll review and then either approve, request for more information, or reject. I don't think that's happened with a recertification, but those are the outcomes. And then once they approve, I will send you your updated credential and remind you of your new expiration date. And that starts the next 2-year certification cycle, which allows you to start uploading new trainings right then. So that is recertification process. And I'm going to pass it back over to Precious for reciprocity and the grievance policy.
Yay! Congratulations. We're talking about reciprocity. That means that you have passed your exam and you got your certification, and you may have gone through a couple of cycles of recertification. Amazing. Kudos to you. Let's say that for some reason you're deciding to leave the great and awesome state of Colorado, right? And you're like, yeah, I'm going to be moving to another state or jurisdiction, or country in some cases, because the ICRC is an international consortium, so they do offer credentials all across this world. And so if you do hold a certification, a credential under ICRC, and for the state of Colorado, that would be the Colorado Peer and Family Specialist credential or the Colorado Certified Prevention Specialist credential. If you hold one of those, you might be able to transfer your credential to another jurisdiction. Now, keeping in mind that each board and committee has the power to decide whether or not to accept that credential in their area. So for example, COPA oversees the credential, the ICRC credentials for the state of Colorado. Let's say you want to move to New Mexico. New Mexico actually has ICRC domain credential for prevention as well. So you could ask for reciprocity for the state of New Mexico, and there is a process to that. And we do recommend that you reach out to the certification team if you would like to begin that process. If you want more information about that, you can also Google ICRC, so International Certification and Reciprocity Consortium, and there's going to be information there about how to do your reciprocity application. It is a good idea to start that process at least 3 months before your current credential expires, or before you move would be even better. So that way it ensures that things go smoothly. Now, take for instance, there might be some states out there like Nevada, for example, who do not offer the ICRC credential for prevention. They might offer it for, they do have ICRC credentials, but they have it for, I believe, the addictions counselor, but they do not offer the prevention credential. In that case, you will not be able to get reciprocity in that state. That state, however, might have a different prevention specialist credential, whether it's state-run and operated or it's operated under an organization there. You'll have to reach out to them to find out more information. And if they do, you'll have to go through that process with them to get that credential. Again, if you need more information on reciprocity, please reach out to me and I can get you more information, and we'll start the process for you. Now, lastly, let's touch on a very important matter of grievance, our grievance policy. Here with COPA, we do have a certification grievance policy and procedure. So if you do have any concerns or issues about the certification process, we ask that you reach out to the certification team. If you need to report a grievance or a concern against a prevention specialist and also a peer, certified prevention, peer and family specialist, because we offer that credential as well, we ask that you go onto our website, check out the grievance policy and procedure, and you can also, on our website, there's an official form you can fill out to submit a grievance. Here at COPA, we are committed to addressing all grievances in a timely and respectful manner. We understand the importance and confidentiality and professionalism when we're dealing with these situations, and we assure that any of the concerns raised will be handled in utmost care and discretion. Your trust in us is important. These credentials are important, and we are dedicated to ensuring that every step of the grievance process is conducted with fairness and integrity. If you have any questions, you can see the contact information for the COPA team there, myself and Katie. If you have any questions, reach out to us for further assistance. I'm going to pass it over to Katie so she can touch more on the COPA website.
Awesome. Thank you, Precious. And I definitely want to reiterate, if you have any questions at all, need any assistance, that is what we were here for. I love to hear from you. Precious loves to hear from you. So please reach out. So going back to the website, we have a lot of cool stuff on here, and we're always revising and updating it to make it better for you guys. So please keep an eye out for changes, new resources, new information, because there's always something new coming to the website. So back to the certifications tab, if you go to Prevention Specialist Certification, briefly went over this, but for more in depth, you can apply here. You can also reference the manual that we've been going through, the Code of Ethics, and FAQs. We have a great FAQ document that has a lot of common questions that we receive from applicants. So if you have a question, feel free to reference there. And then if your question is not answered there, you have an easy spot to contact us. So if you fill this out, your message will come straight to the certification team and we'll get that question answered for you. Another spot I wanted to point out is this ICRC in the certification committees tab. If you're wondering when the meeting is for the prevention specialists committee meeting, because you're like, oh, I need to get this in 10 days prior, go ahead and pull this up and it has the exact dates for those meetings on there. So like the next meeting for us would be September 16th. So that's a great reference. And then for the grievance policy and submissions, you can also find that in this drop down here. And this is where you can go if you do find yourself needing to submit a grievance. And the code of ethics are also linked here, as well as the grievance policy. So those are some helpful resources for you. Like I said, please keep checking back here because it's a great resource. So with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Precious to wrap us up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie, for going over the website and the resources available to applicants. With that, I would like to say thank you for your time and the energy that you are putting into learning more about the Colorado Certified Prevention Specialist credential. By pursuing this credential, you're not only just gaining a title, you're stepping up into real life situations and experiences that are going to make a difference in your community. With this credential, you will hopefully gain the skills and knowledge you need to acquire to implement prevention programming and services that will empower you to tackle the most pressing issues we face today, from substance use to mental health challenges. You'll be joining a dedicated group of professionals who are committed to creating healthier and safer environments for everyone. Remember, every step you take towards this credential is a step towards positive change, not just for yourself, but for the people in your home, the people in your community, in your state, and across these lands. So if you are passionate, just as you can tell, we are passionate about this, about prevention and about overall health and well-being for the state of Colorado, and you're ready to be a catalyst for change, we encourage you to start your application today. The journey may take some effort, but the impact that you will make as a certified prevention specialist is going to be worth every bit of it. So let's together make a difference in Colorado. Apply now, become a leader in prevention. And we want to say thank you and have a wonderful day from your certification team here at COPA.
Thank you.